Hello again, it's me Ben and I'm back again, this time talking about life cycle emissions and life cycle resource use as a whole. Well, life cycle emissions are part of that, the emissions that a vehicle emits in its lifetime, considering both the embodied energy that we looked at before, the embodied emissions, the embodied resource use, and the in-use or operational energy. So considering not just the energy that it takes to make a vehicle, but also the energy that that vehicle uses to run. This is where things get interesting as far as electric vehicles and internal combustion engine vehicles, i.e. petrol or diesel engine vehicles are concerned. Because you may have heard someone say before,
electric vehicles are actually worse for the environment because to manufacture an electric vehicle requires higher energy use, which requires more emissions of CO2. And in fact, when you also consider the lithium-ion batteries inside, which are very hard to dispose of and extremely dangerous to the environment to procure, really, you're ending up with something much worse for the environment. So
the thing is that when we consider the full life cycle emissions, taking into account both embodied and in-use energy, electric vehicles generally outperform their internal combustion counterparts. On average, in the European Union, where there's slightly over 20% renewable energy on grids on average, it takes about 5 years for an electric vehicle to outperform its internal combustion counterpart in terms of environmental performance. And of course, as energy grids become cleaner and there's an increasingly high percentage of renewables in the mix across European energy grids, we can expect this figure to fall even further. But in order to reduce both the embodied resource use and the operational resource use in terms of transport for tourism, one of the best things we can do is to use public transport instead of private vehicles. Among the most efficient modes of transport per kilometre travelled per passenger are coaches and trains, except for walking and travelling by bike, which, as you might expect, are even better. And flying generally produces even higher emissions per passenger per kilometre travelled than travelling in your own private car. As far as relatively short haul journeys are concerned, travel times on the plane are often less than travel times by bus or by train, not because of the fact that the plane is faster, obviously it is, but because of the fact that there's a limited number of routes available to passengers who want to go by coach or by train. Often it involves loads of connections, leaving at strange times of day, and it's just not practical a lot of the time. So what could tourism transport organisers do? What could tour companies do to offer a service which is more environmentally friendly but competitive in terms of practicality with the plane? Well, although trains and buses are slower than planes, they have the advantage of not having the long queue times that you typically have in airports to go through security and all the rest. And the long transfer times, which are often present when you arrive at an airport a long distance from the city centre. If coach companies and train companies were to add more routes, then in spite of their relative slowness compared to the plane, overall journey times could be made more or less the same, and they could offer a more competitive price. Obviously, I'm not talking about flying from London to Sydney. I'm talking about short to medium haul flights. I'm talking about flying from one European city to another, for example, and comparatively the length of time you could spend travelling on the same journey on a coach or train. And another thing, travelling on the train or even the bus is generally more comfortable than travelling on the plane. I mean, on the plane, you've not got much legroom. I know that being tall. Being on the train, you can walk around, you can go to the bathroom. Sometimes there's even a little cafe. It's more pleasant in a lot of ways. You know, rail companies, bus companies can lean into this. And also, slow tourism is becoming more of a thing. And, you know, it's not always about how quickly you can get from A to B, especially when we're talking about tourism. Tourism we understand as travelling for leisure rather than travelling for business. Of course, there are a couple of little caveats I'd like to add to this. One of which is that looking to the future of aviation, things are looking positive in terms of fuel from kelp. Yeah, it's a thing, look into it. And also hydrogen planes. Well, we'll see what happens with that. But in the meantime, as I say, best options are probably bus or train.